What's up, Trainiacs? Welcome to this week's Triathlon News Day Tuesday, where in this week's edition of Triathlon News Day, Ironman gives away tons and tons of money. One of the longest, most iconic Ironman events. It looks like it's coming back home, and unfortunately, very in a serious way, triathlon has lost a very key member of our family. What's up, triathletes? Welcome to this week's Triathlon News Day Tuesday, where every single Tuesday, as long as I'm not traveling and there is training, triathlon, all kinds of news going on all around the triathlon world, we talk about what's going on. Make sure you stick around to the end, where, if this is your first time here, we talk about everyone's favorite part of Triathlon News Day Tuesday, and that is a story from the Trainiac community. And as always, full links to everything we talk about are in the description below. Now let's start off with Ironman Foundation announcing that they will be donating $100,000 to relief efforts in Panama to help with the housing shortage that has been caused there by Hurricane Michael. Now what's really interesting about this is that this is a normal thing for the Ironman Foundation to announce in the communities that we race in. But what is very unique about this is that the homes that they'll be building are 3D printed houses. This technology of 3D printing houses in concrete blocks, I imagine that that's what they're using, is really, really cool. Related note, unrelated to that, kinda, sorta, the money does go to Ironman Foundation. If you want to get a spot to Kona, the annual Kona auction is live right now, and you can go and essentially buy your way to Kona. It ends up being really expensive, like tens of thousands of dollars, but all of the money does go to relief efforts that the Ironman Foundation puts on. As I mentioned last week, Ironman Penticton was the original Ironman Canada course, and it was one of the first 5 Ironmans in the world. This was an iconic race that the entire town would get excited about, and they had upwards of 3,000 athletes go to Ironman Canada. Several years ago, Penticton and Ironman kind of butted heads, ended up going apart from each other. Ironman Penticton changed to Challenge Penticton, and the race really suffered. Now, recently, Penticton announced that they would be talking about putting in a bid to bring Ironman back to Penticton, and last week, the town council voted unanimously to put up the funding to make this happen. Total funding is reported to be $663,000, $299,000 of which is straight cash money. $150,000 of that cash is going towards the Ironman licensing fee. So if you want to hold a local Ironman race, we're talking about $150,000. Smackaroonies, cheddar, dinero. And there's another $110,000 worth of in-kind services. So it's a very expensive proposition, and not for Joe Taren to think that he's going to bring an Ironman to Winnipeg. Now, sad news that we have lost a member of the triathlon family from around the world, a key member of the team of San Diegans who built triathlon to largely what it is. One of those team members, Mike Plant, passed away last week at the age of 71 from lymphocytic leukemia. Now, Mike Plant was a writer, photographer, journalist, a key member in starting up the Bud Light Triathlon Series, which then later became the US Triathlon Series. And when I was at Triathlon Business International in 2018, Mike Plant was one of the key members. He was like one of the OGs of triathlon. Most of you might know him as the author of Iron Will, a book about triathlon that is one of the more popular ones out there and has been for a long time. And unfortunately, we lost Mike. Apparently, a lot of people even closest to him didn't know how ill he was because he just kept trucking through it in the triathlon lifestyle and attitude that we all have. So we're very sorry to lose Mike, and our condolences go out to his family. Now, in Ironman racing, there was a whole bundle of results that happened. 4 half Ironman races that had pro fields out there, so let's get right into it. Half Ironman I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, Payday? I got nothing. Andy Borscherer and Emma Pallant won. 70.3 Gulf Coast was won by TJ Tollakson and Carrie Lester. The half Ironman Asia Pacific Championships in Vietnam was won by Holly Lawrence, who continues to come back to this sport after a really rough 2017, beginning of 2018, dominating all of these events. And our pal, Patrick Lange, I know I said that wrong. Mel cut in the Lange. Lange? Do I say it somewhat properly?
Yes, somewhat properly.
Patrick Lange ended up winning on the men's side, which we haven't really seen from Patrick early in the season, who said to me in the podcast that we did with him earlier this year that if he has the ability to win in Kona, everything throughout the entire year goes towards Kona. So historically, he has not really shown a ton of fitness early in the season. He showed it this week. And finally, half Ironman Monterrey happened in Mexico with Canadian Brent McMahon winning on the men's side and podcast guest Lauren Goss winning on the women's side. Now, I don't want to take full credit, but I did tell her that we have a habit of sending podcast guests off to victories. Just saying. So if there are any Jan Fredinos, Lionel Sanders out there that want to win a race, doors open. Now, speaking of the podcast, as I mentioned, we just recorded an interview with Lauren Goss last week, but yesterday, 2 days ago, Sunday, when we publish our podcast, we published an interview that we did with age grouper Chris Pinot, who has lost 120 pounds, and you might not expect him to be like a typical guest where it's like, oh, from overweight to amazing greatness. Chris is like the average age group triathlete out there. He's struggling to get in the 8-hour cutoff period. He has a family, he's a very successful business person, and I wanted to get him on the podcast because of the attitude that he has about this being for health. This not being about nothing but personal bests and the number on the scale. He wants to be healthy, he wants to be fulfilled, he wants to work in his time frame, and whatever the results are, sure, he does want to get faster, but when he actually didn't make it in the cutoff in Puerto Rico half Ironman when I was down there with him, he was perfectly happy because he enjoyed the experience, and his attitude, I think, is great for people to hear from. So go check out the Triathlon Taren Podcast. It is the most highly ranked triathlon podcast in the world on Apple Podcasts, thanks to a lot of awesome Trainiacs. Segue into this week's Trainiac Story, which goes like this. Hi Taren, my name is Paige and I just joined Team Trainiac recently. Thank you. So far it's going great. I'm fairly new to triathlon. In 2016, I started off doing relays and eventually graduated to sprints before I stopped doing them altogether. I just didn't have the motivation to train or take part in triathlon after my second sprint in March of 2017. Fast forward to August of 2018, and I fell off a racehorse and broke my spine with a T12 and L1 compression fracture. I couldn't do much of anything for 2 months. I gained more weight than I'd like to admit, and I was mentally destroyed. I unfortunately could not get back on a horse when I was cleared because I lost so much fitness and gained a lot of weight within that time. I had to take a whole winter off from galloping because I was nowhere near fit enough for it to be safe for myself, the horse, the other horses, or the people around me. So in my free time, I decided to get back into triathlon and get my fitness back. Instead of doing sprints where I barely trained for them before, I decided I needed to immediately step up to the international or Olympic distance. I've not used a coach at all since I started training this January 2017. I got pretty good on my own, but I got exhausted trying to figure out what I was supposed to do every single day. This is where Team Trainiac has been a lifesaver for me, telling me exactly what I need to do at each phase of my training. Even if I have to modify the workouts to fit me or where I'm at now, I know how to do that with the plan. Along with that, I went ahead and got the full Pro Triathlon Training Masterclass package. I wasn't sure if it was going to be worth the money, but I decided to take a chance, and I'm glad that I did. Hearing some concerns that I have for myself as a triathlete coming from professional triathletes really puts my mind at ease. I've been very impatient and I would get very frustrated up until I started listening to these master classes. Learning that it's such a long process and everyone goes through ups and downs during their own training, even the pros, was mentally relaxing. I've completed 2 international triathlons since January. I'm in Florida for the winters, so the season starts pretty early here. I wasn't thrilled with my performances at the time, but coming from where I was with no coaching, I look back and realize how far I've actually come. I can't wait to see how progress will now happen now that I'm on Team Trainiac. Thanks so much, Paige. Well, thanks so much for sending that in, Paige. And for everyone watching here, I didn't want to share that as an ad for Team Trainiac or an ad for ProTriathlonTraining.com. I wanted to share that because what I find is a good thing for people to know is that they aren't alone out there. The struggles, the wonders, the worries, the questions that everyone has out there, they're the questions that every new triathlete has. And often, if you can find a resource, whether it's teamtrainiac.com or protriathlontraining.com, and learn from pros or me or a training team from your local triathlon community and learn from the people that have come before you that have gone through those exact same things, you might enjoy the sport a little bit more because you just know that there's other people out there to learn from and to experience things with. And that is going to get you into triathlon, this fantastic sport that you can do for the rest of your life and helps change your life. So I just wanted to share that story. Thanks, Paige. That was awesome to hear. Now, if anyone else wants to get their story shared here on Triathlon News Day, I know a lot of you are experiencing your first races of the year, maybe ever. Send them in to us. We love hearing about them. More community, the better. Email me at Taren@triathlontaren.com. Include some race photos and maybe some before and after photos, family photos, whatever it is. People love hearing about this stuff. Very motivating to everyone. And if you aren't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button below. Later, Trainiacs.